All right, so as soon as I'm about to go to bed, of course, new roster rumors get released, and I have to wait until the next day. People have already covered their opinions on these roster rumors. One of them I haven't really heard too much talk about because I think it happened later in the night for most people in EU. But really exciting news. All of them are around Oppers, apparently. So we're going to get into it, straight into it, right? Continues with the roster rumors. G2 bench Sampaius, and they sign r1nkle. This is a bit of an interesting move because I didn't really think Sampaius was the main problem in G2. The main problem in G2 has been Hunter for a while, and I've said that repeatedly. It's Hunter and it's Nerds. Nerds isn't performing as a star player. Hunter is too selfish with the roles he takes. It doesn't deliver the numbers he needs to, and he doesn't call a good enough game. Another thing that kind of pissed me off is that they had potential to get Kixin. Kixin would have 100% good reason to join this roster. He's played with Saw in the past. He's played with Nertz in the past. If you want to give Nertz another shot, right? You have Matoush and Heavy God. Heavy God is like one of the best anchors in the world, maybe the best. It depends. It's like him versus Bit. Depends on how you want to argue it. But really weird move to sign r1nkle. This is a complete stylistic like difference between Sampaius and him because if you don't know, r1nkle was a very aggressive opper when he was on NIP. Super aggressive. He's like simple light is the way I explain him. Um, he is very aggressive. Loves going for X Factor picks. He's great. Like he has unbelievably good mechanics when he's on. Right. Sometimes when you watch his demos, the game looks easy for him sometimes. Whether that be with a rifle or an op or a pistol. Right. He's got great mechanics, but the problem is it's very hit or miss. The guy cannot be tamed, right? The guy, like, that sounds like weird, right? But he goes for the picks he goes for, and because of that, he sometimes looks like he's inting games, and he does int games, right? He sometimes throws rounds that don't need to be thrown because he over peaks or he plays overconfidently because he thinks he's like simple, right? Um, on top of that, NIP replaced Stown and they got or replaced r1nkle with Stown, not even a primary opper, and they got better. So this makes me kind of question um, why you would even bother with r1nkle. Now, Thorin brought up a pretty good point, which was that Snappy and Saw are actually friends, right? Snappy and Saw, they obviously worked together on ENCE, where Saw was Snappy's coach on that roster. That roster was super fun. So obviously Snappy has some insight into r1nkle as a player in terms of practice and on officials and these things like this. So maybe that's why he wanted to pick him up. But I don't think Sampaius was a problem. Just going off the statistics, I think Sampaius, when you consider the role he does on this team, these stats are not that bad, right? I think Sampaius has to play with basically 4 riflers who want resources, including the IGL, and he has to play a supportive style of op on the T and CT side, especially on the T side, where he has to throw a bunch of utility. He's not allowed to go for picks. He's rather passive, right? And you can even see that with statistics. Not a lot of openers on T side. Not a lot of he's more clutching and trading, right? On CT side, he's allowed to go for more aggressive picks and more aggressive plays, but for the most part, it's just a complete stylistic change. So the fact that you still have, in my opinion, the same problem, which is Hunter and Ertz underperforming, I don't think this is going to fix the roster. And I think picking up r1nkle, who literally got replaced by a non-primary opper in Stown, um, and Nip improved, is not a good sign, in my opinion. So I don't like the move personally, but we'll see. r1nkle, I don't think has historically ever performed against top 20 teams, even in 2025. He didn't perform against top 20 teams really at all. 2024, I think he was slightly better when he was in, never mind, he actually wasn't, so I'm just lying. Um, but moving on to the next roster rumor is MLBR are set to land NQZ. So it sounds like they're not picking up Klim, which kind of sucks. The big question then becomes who's going to get Klim? If you don't know who Klim is this young Russian CIS prospect. Um, I was made aware of him by King T. He played on G2 Ares. He's been on their academy team. He was loaned out to MIBR for almost a year now. It's been about a year since MIBR has had Klim in the roster. And I think MIBR was a very exciting roster with Klim in it because he's a prospect I actually do rate. I think he has a great rifle for an opper, right? He's more of a hybrid opper because he likes the rifle on T and CT side quite a bit. He has an unbelievably good rifle for like late rounds, clutching, trade fragging, right? He's very good at it. The problem I have with his opping is that on the tier 1 level, he's very passive, and a lot of people have pointed it out. He doesn't take enough initiative on CT side or T side with the op, and sometimes it looks like he doesn't know what to do. And I think that's more of just because the tier 1 meta is like different, right? Klim is a more passive style of opera if you watch him back in G2 Ares. MIBR, they kind of unleashed him a bit more because they're playing against Brazilian tier 2, and I think he thinks he's better than them, which he definitely is. But it's a bit of a weird situation. I think NQZ is a good pickup if you can't sign Klim, right? It adds to the Brazilian core. Are you keeping LNZ now because of this? If you're keeping LNZ, I have faith for this roster, but I think one of the changes that needs to be made is Brennison. Jesus Christ, hold on. Kicking my ass right now. One of the biggest problems I have with this roster is Brennison. Brennison is awful, and he's been awful for a while. I didn't even pull up the stats, but we can pull him up quick. Just to show why I do not rate this player. He has been a problem for a while because he is not. He can shoot, but he's so individually poor as an anchor, it's kind of insane, right? And if you go to the better opposition, not tier 2 Brazil, he is god awful. He is really fucking bad, right? And he's been this way for a while, right? Even in 2025, he wasn't good. Everybody remembers the one life series he had against Falcons in Austin, but that is the only thing he's done that has been remotely good. So, personally, I would also change Brennison if you can. Get Koala, get Nissim. Nissim's available on the market, and he plays the spots Brennison plays, and he's much better in those spots. So, that's a slam dunk move, in my opinion. If you're going to pick up anybody else, also sign Nissim, right? Nissim is on bench, on legacy, sign him. And getting finally to the last move, and this move I'm very excited for because it's two players. One player I've been hating on for quite a while, and one player who I am a very big fan of, who I've been watching in the Academy Leagues. FaZe bench Broky, and they loan JBOEN for the rest of 2026. So we're going to first talk about benching Broky. This was coming for a while. I think anybody who had been watching FaZe knew Broky was the biggest issue for almost 2 years now. He's been an issue for a while, right? 2024, he had a great first season. Second season kind of fell off, was more hit or miss until Shanghai, where he stepped it up again. And then 2025, first season, awful. Allegiant and Frozen were the only things on that roster giving them consistency. Broky was a liability for most of that season, right? Just couldn't get it together. Second season, had glimpses, right, at some tournaments, right, when he first came back into the roster, then fell down. At Budapest, kind of lived up to expectations again, and was kind of back to his decent form, right? 2026, he has not been good. He's been straight up bad. And there were rumors about Broky becoming a rifler in the squad. I'm glad they didn't go that route. I'm glad they just picked up JBOEN. JBOEN has sort of a similar style of Broky, but not really. He's more aggressive in the early rounds from what I've seen. He's very good with an op. He's got a good rifle, right? I rate his clutch ability, right? He's very good at clutching. We'll talk about JBOEN, but I think Broky need to be removed. I have his stats up across basically. This is the start of 2025 and to the end of his stint now on 2026, and it dropped to 1.02. If you scroll down, the stats don't really get better against better opposition, right? Even if you want to go against in playoffs, he might be better. I'm actually kind of curious. No, in playoffs, he's not even better. So I'm not going to lie, he didn't really have a reason to stay on this roster for quite a while, and he was a big hint. I was even questioning should they get Klim, right? Because Klim is a young, exciting prospect, but they picked JBOEN. I think JBOEN is a good pickup. And if you don't know who JBOEN is, JBOEN was on Big's Academy. JBOEN was a very exciting prospect, Danish opper. There's not a lot of Danish opping prospects, right? The other one is like Slime on State. But JBOEN, I think, is more exciting than Slime. JBOEN has been farming on Big Academy for quite a while. He's fairly aggressive. He likes to go for plays, right? On CT side, you can see he goes for a lot of openers, 22%. On T side, he's more of the supportive style opper, right? Who gets more of the clutches, right? But I think he's a very fun opper. When I watched him in Big Academy, right? He's a player who I've made time to watch a few of his demos, watch some of his games, right? And I think, to be honest, this is not a bad pickup from FaZe if you have no money, right? FaZe not having money, completely fine. It doesn't look like Frozen's going anywhere now because I haven't heard any roster rumors about Navi, and the fact that you're picking up Jabone kind of tells me you're probably keeping Frozen. And they're probably going to sign Netsu. They should sign Jimfat if they can, right? If they sign Jimfat, that's a slam dunk because now you have an anchor spot filled in, and you have a pretty good squad, right? I think you lack a bit on the aggressive side, right? Because Jacob is their most aggressive piece, and then Twist and Frozen are like flex players, and Jimfat is passive. So, but having Jabone, who's more aggressive on CT side, might help them out a bit on in terms of the aggression levels on this team, because I think right now too passive as it currently stands, especially if they pick up Jimfat. But I think with Jabone, it kind of helps out a bit. So yeah, those are the roster rumors. I just wanted to talk about them rather quickly. I don't really have a lot to, it's only really three roster rumors, but they are very interesting. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. I think it's good moves for most of the teams except G2. I don't think it's good for G2. But we'll see.